If you're at a crossroads and you're looking to maybe reinvent yourself but don't know where to start, I'm talking with my guest, Dana Hilmer, co founder of Camp Reinvention, and she's got three things for you to remember.
There's three very important things you need to remember because you need to believe you can make a change to actually create a change in your life. Number one is change is possible, that you get to intentionally create change. Change happens, but you can create it in the direction that you want. Number two, it is never, ever too late for you to pursue a dream. In fact, I would argue that that's what keeps you most fully alive. And number three, and this is the harder one for people to wrap their head around, is the life you've had so far does not in any way need to dictate the life that you live in your future, because you're the one who gets to decide that.
Hey, I'm Hillary Baggett, host of Hill Talks Momentum in Midlife. As an occupational therapist turned entrepreneur after 50, I am on a mission to connect, motivate, and inspire women over 40 to know that no matter what is going on in your body, mind, spirit, or business, you can reach for that dream and know you are not alone as we create the Women's Midlife Network. And welcome to Dana Hilmer, co-founder of Camp Reinvention, along with the fabulous Wendy Parati. But today we get to talk to Dana. So glad you're here. Welcome.
Thank you. Really, really happy to be here with you, Hillary.
Sometimes I wish I started recording as soon as we start the call because our pre-conversations are so rich, and I'll share some of that a little bit later on. But because we're doing this theme of women supporting women, it was such a natural fit and a little bit spontaneous of us to record today, but we're really excited. So, Dana, I would like you to start with talking about how do you support other women?
That is a beautiful question. And Camp Reinvention, that's what camp is all about. If I were to kind of say, like in a really brief summary, what camp is, it's a online program and community that brings women together who are at this kind of crossroads. And I think when we're at a crossroads, we feel alone. We're kind of wrestling with whatever challenge we have in our own head, in our own living room, and we feel like we're the only one in the world dealing with it. But when you bring women together, magic happens, I have to say. And so while this is a 12-week coaching program, it's also this rich community where I really believe that our campers are learning and gaining as many insights as they are from their fabulous peers as they are from us. There's something incredible about bringing women together. And I think normalizing a lot of what this midlife and later in life experience is, and to kind of be each other's cheerleaders. It's hard to create change, right? It's really hard to create change. So when you want to create a change in your life, the best way to do that, and we see this over and over again, is to bring women together that are doing the same thing because they get you. They're like behind you and on this journey with you because they also are creating powerful changes in their life. So I would say that's the essence of camp. And to me, it's about bringing women together. It's about elevating each other and supporting each other. And with that, I think that's where the magic happens.
I wish I knew about Camp Reinvention 2 years ago. And, we were all going through COVID. We were all trying to come out of it, but what a gift to bring other women together and it's not just, hey, meet this person. It's really doing that deep work to create that positive, lifelong change for what comes next.
You said something really powerful is when women coming together in this kind of environment, that connection point that you have isn't your kid's sports team. It isn't the community, whatever. You're connecting on the level of what is your dream? What's holding you back? How can I help you? And the friendships that happen in that environment and the honesty that's created is something I don't think we experience with a lot of our day-to-day friends. And so to your point, you're connecting in this place that really is different, and that's what makes the difference.
Absolutely. And if for those of us that have children, sometimes it is easier to connect, whether it's a daycare drop off or a preschool relationship or before and after school and volunteering. And then when they leave home, it's kind of well, where are my friends? And sometimes, who am I? What's my identity? What's my value? And what's my worth? And I love that you create space for women to connect with their dream and connect with themselves so that they know life is not over. There's a whole new future waiting for them, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting. I find the women that we have at camp to be exactly who we wanted to have join us. Like Wendy and I kind of pinch ourselves for like, oh my gosh, this cohort of women is exactly what we dreamed it would be. And we find that the women kind of are at a crossroads of some sort. And I would say they're in three different kind of categories, if you will, if I were to kind of create a generalization. I think a lot of women that join us are those women that have been high striving. They've been checking the boxes of what they thought life should be, right? We all have kind of this I think, prescribed notion of what we think success is supposed to look like, right? They've been checking those boxes, everything looks great, but they reach this age and it's like, not doing it for me anymore. I'm not sure I'm feeling so fulfilled. And yet I have so much I know I can give and I want to do, and I want to figure out what that is, right? So,
Well, I love that you like to meet women where they are right now, and especially at that crossroads. So
mhm,
you know who you want to help and you know who benefits the most. But how did this evolve? Can you take me back a little bit
mhm.
to understand your heart?
So how did camp reinvention evolve? It's interesting. Wendy and I are both coaches. We've been coaches for a long time and we've done a lot of women's leadership work. And this really started as a passion project. It wasn't really a business in the beginning. And this is kind of, we talk about this with goal setting. Sometimes you have to just dive in, not overthink something, and it evolves because you learn along the way. So we started Camp Reinvention as a retreat with 6 months of coaching with the women afterwards. And it was in January of 2020. It was just a cool project. It went really, really well. We're like, oh wow, we've got something amazing here. Let's do it again. So not surprisingly, we set up the next retreats, and we all know what happened in 2020, right? So COVID happened, those retreats got canceled, and we started just asking different questions. What would it look like if we brought this online? How can we bring women together in this time of isolation? How can we be of service to women maybe that aren't only local to us, but also women around the country, around the globe? So we started Camp Reinvention as a membership program. And in our pre-conversation, we were both talking about how you kind of get in and things evolve along the way. And that's what's happened with us, right? The way we deliver the camp program has evolved. And where we've landed is in a place where we have a really, really tight 12-week program that really is funny. I think really gets inside um, the mind of the women. And what I mean by that is we need to have clarity on what we want and why we want it. We need to get clear on what are some of those things that are serving us and are not serving us. And at this stage of life, we have narratives and limiting beliefs and patterns in our life that we've created over all these years. Like we're not,
Yeah.
little teeny bunnies anymore. So we've created some patterns that may not be working for us anymore. And so we need to kind of look under the hood, if you will, and taking a look at what is working, what is not. And we want to make sure that we are letting go of some of those things that are no longer serving us in such a way that when we have the clarity of what we want to create in our life, now we can move forward in a much lighter way. Right. And so we take women through this whole process, including, of course, goal setting and accountability and all sorts of meaty conversations. Like last night, we were talking about identity. Our identity shifts at this stage of our life. I'm a new empty nester. My identity just shifted, right? And so there's a
Yes.
lot of that we go through, and I want to make sure I didn't lose track of the original question. So how did this all evolve? What we've realized is we want to have our program meet the learning style and also the price point of all those that would like to go through a process like this. And it's a coaching process and, like I said, rich community. And so the program has evolved in such a way that we're now offering it 4 times a year, 12-week program. The next program actually opens on October 3rd. And we also are offering a digital evergreen version of the program that we'll be launching later this fall. And that'll be a do-it-yourself version, right? That version that if somebody wants to just jump right in on their own, and lower price points, so easier access to entry. So we're really trying to make this meet the different learning styles of everybody that wants to join and be a part of it. For those that want coaching support and ongoing learning, we have a membership program that we offer too. That's after the 12-week program. That's an option. It's an invitation if it's right for people. So it's definitely evolved. We've definitely learned, just like you have, as you're launching into this online space and serving in this kind of way.
I love watching the evolution and the pivoting and the changes and the listening, because you and I share something really in common, that we started out, okay, let's start with a membership. But then people are a little bit nervous of like, what am I getting? What am I showing up to? We've switched platforms. We've talked about that.
Yep.
And there's no one right way to do things. And women need to know it's not too late. You haven't missed the train or the boat or the plane. You get to reinvent yourself for whatever your next is for you, right?
Yeah. It's so fascinating too. I think sometimes the word reinvention may sound intimidating, because just because you're reinventing part of your life doesn't mean that you're not bringing with you in the rest of your life the things that you love. And reinvention can be big things. It can be small things. Some of the women in camp have decided, you know what, I'm going to quit my job and live in Hawaii for a year. I'm going to, like, these kind of big changes. Other women are making very powerful changes that feel easier and more accessible. Changes like, I'm going to talk to myself differently, or I'm going to take care of myself in a way that is consistent, and I'm going to honor my body, or I am going to start a little side gig. I've always dreamed about it. Let's see where it goes. Maybe it becomes my business. So these reinventions are big and small, and the coaching process we bring women through is really all about helping you be the person you want to be to create the change you want to create, right? It's any change, any area of life. Yeah.
Exactly. And if it feels overwhelming, it means perhaps people are thinking of too many changes or too many categories at once. And so is it starting with the self-talk? Is it with just one physical movement adding, or those kinds of ideas, the side hustle, which, may or may not be a full-time job in the future. And knowing that we don't have to have all those answers right away. That's huge.
I want to touch on that for a second, because we dove into this a little bit in our pre-conversation as well, that a lot of times people think they need to have everything figured out. They need to have the whole plan in place before they start this thing they want to start. And that is so not true, right? And you and I have both experienced that. Like, Wendy and I started Camp Reinvention, not even knowing it was going to be a business. It was just a cool project. But I can tell you right now, if we took the time to try to create this whole plan to get to where we are now, and to be bulletproof, and to learn all there is about online marketing and learning platforms. And like, if we tried to do all that before we launched, we would have never launched, right? So you start wherever you are, and it's getting into action. And it's when you're in action, that's when you're now gaining knowledge. I think people think, I need to be ready, I need to know. No, you don't. You need to take a step. You need to get into action. And with that action, you start pivoting along the way. You start learning along the way, and just kind of staying in that experimenter mindset. And, Hillary, you were talking about how you've done that, right? Like, being in this experimenter mindset. What's working? What's not? What do my people want? Right? You stay in that place and just trust that it's going to evolve as it needs to, because you're learning and you're acting on what you're learning because you're in action. Yeah.
100%, Dana. I love that you are sharing specifics of start where you are right now and take one step forward. Don't get stuck in the kind of, okay, I'm just going to research everything. It's like, well, until you put something out there, you're not going to know if you're going to get the feedback.
Yeah.
I will tell people, if you're nervous about, well, who would look at me if I was starting a business? Would I just be inundated? I'm like, there are not millions of people looking at you in this moment, unless you are a celebrity with a big following. that are going to inundate you. So it's take one small step.
And that's the key, small, like even 10 minutes a day, right? I actually just kind of a flashback back 17 years ago now, which is crazy. I published a book called Blindsided by a Diaper. And, I had started a lot of projects before and not finished them. But this project, I was like, okay, if I start this, I'm finishing it. And at the time, I had a newborn, a 2-year-old, and a 4-year-old. Now, the only reason why I mention this, and it is something I'm proud of, I got it published by Random House and all that. But what I'm most proud of is I finished it, and I finished it one teeny step at a time, right? And so, I was lucky if I could get one email out a day. It's an anthology. So I had collaborators that wrote essays, so it was one outreach, one email, one editing of an essay, it was a half hour here, 20 minutes there. On very rare occasions to have more than an hour to work on it. And I was consistent and it got done. And I think what was very cool as it relates to this whole, just start before you feel like you're ready, is when I started it, I didn't have anything to show. I mean, I had never been published. I did not have a publisher. I did not have an agent. I just had an idea. And so, of course, what's going on in my head before I started, it was who's going to take me seriously? But when I got into action and I got that first writer, and then I got the second writer to commit, which was really exciting, the language I told myself changed, and the language on how I spoke about the project changed. I was no longer I want to do this cool thing and I hope I can do this cool thing. It was, I am doing.
I'm doing it. Yes.
Right? And what a powerful shift. Yeah, I am.
Well, we didn't even get to talk about this, but I took a sabbatical this summer, and it was one of the targets was to kind of finish the rough draft of my first book. And fantastic. That fear that holds us back of what will someone say. But I can tell you, for anyone out there who has a project or book, whatever it is, no one is reading it unless you put it out there. You are not serving or helping anyone unless you do it, and put it on the calendar, tell someone out loud, hold yourself accountable. I gave a date of like, okay, by August 15th, I will have reached out to publishers. And I did. And it doesn't mean that someone's just waiting to snap it up and, the momentum's going, because sometimes writing book proposals is very time consuming. Mm-hmm. But you can either reach out for help and know that you're not alone, which is kind of the whole point, taking us back to Camp Reinvention, of bringing women together so that they can move forward.
So interesting too, is when you say what you're doing, right? I am writing this book. I am starting this project. I am taking this trip. I am now, by putting it out there and making that commitment to not only yourself, but saying it out loud to the right people, of course, that are supportive. That's when you not only start seeing opportunities you wouldn't have seen before, but this is where the women around you are going to say, oh, I know who I need to connect you with. Oh, I know a friend that published. Maybe she can help you. Like, people really want to help. And I think what's interesting is we women are so afraid to ask for help. But at the end of the day, we feel good helping others. And this is something that we all love to do. And so I'd encourage any of your listeners that if you have something that you're really, eager to do, put it out there. Start talking about it. That tiny little action you take each day, but start talking about it. You're going to have some resources at your disposal you never would have imagined. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, I know that we're talking mostly about Camp Reinvention, but I did want to plug just a little bit about some of the challenges that you have throughout the year in order to support other women, because these are two specific quotes that I say to myself sometimes, of like, Hillary, stop overthinking it. Yeah. Or, stop shooting on yourself. And when we started talking about it, you said, those are exactly the names of our challenges. Could you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So we are holding actually in the beginning of October, and we'll hold it again in the spring, the Stop Overthinking Challenge. And we find that so many of us, and myself included at different times in my life, of course, get stuck in our head, and that's a really exciting place to be, because we're living in the world of possibility. We're not putting ourselves on the line, right? We're swimming around with all these ideas. But the reality is, unless you get into action, you're not going to move anything forward. And you can actually kid yourself to believing you're making progress, doing more research, doing more thinking, doing more planning, but you're not. You need to get out of your head and into action. So the Stop Overthinking Challenge, we do that challenge twice a year. Also the Stop Shoulding Challenge. And and this is meant to sound like what it sounds like, right? We should all over ourselves in so many ways. We should away our time, saying yes to things that really is not what we want to do. And this is done in big ways and small ways, right? Sometimes we stay in careers or relationships long past what we want to do because we think we should, right? Also, those small ways that we should away our time, when we say yes to those commitments that when we look at our calendar, it makes us feel drained. They're not really aligned, with what's important to us. We have regrets, woulda, coulda, shoulda. Sometimes we think about how life should be. A big one is the pressure that we put on ourselves to be a way that we think we should be rather than be who we already are. And the ways that we should on other people. When we tell other people what they should do, that's the birthplace of resentment, right? So we explore these and more in the Stop Shoulding Challenge. And we'll be doing that again in the spring of 24. So really powerful conversations. I think both of these are really core ways that all of us can find ourselves being very, very stuck. And it's about getting an action and getting an action on those things that are really aligned with what you value and how you actually want to be experiencing your life, right? Not action for action's sake, but, in the direction that you really want to go.
Yes, 100% of how do you want to experience your life? One of the podcasts that I've released is Living and Leaving Your Legacy through journal writing. And sometimes it takes that pause to look back and see, am I showing up each day for myself or for the other people in my life of how I want to? And sometimes the signals for that are, how am I talking to myself or other people? What is my tone? Am I rushing places? Am I grounded? I'm just so reflective on, I wanted to circle back because we talked about in the very beginning before we pressed record of what are terms that women are comfortable with. And we talk about we're serving women, and is it an age? We want to keep that positive. Is it a stage in life? What are the names of that? Is that inclusive or exclusive? Whether it's Gen X or midlife or women over 40, over 50, over 60, life and beyond, second chapter. We've got all the names and people have very strong feelings about all of it. So how do you choose to serve who you serve?
Wendy and I have wrestled with what is the right terminology. Is it an age, women 45 and older, 50 and older? Is it midlife? Is it second half of life? We've wrestled with that too. And I do think it's more about a stage of life. So for example, I'm 58 and I'm a new empty nester, but I know some women that are 10 years younger than I am, that are at the exact same stage of life that I'm in, right? So I think it's really about the stage of life. I think it's about reaching that point in your life where you're looking ahead and you're saying, what's next here? I am in kind of that middle mark or that second half, however you define it for yourself. But it's really about creating new possibilities and reimagining and actually creating these new possibilities that you're excited about as you get older, as you're in the second half of your life. And I think we women, and this is such a beautiful thing. I've even seen a change since 2020 when we started camp. There's so many more examples of women we're seeing now. We're visible, which is great. And we all know that we as women in this age are far from over. We are so relevant. There are so many things that we want to and can contribute and experiences we can have that we're excited about. And I think there's so much more conversation around that now. And so I think it's really speaking to getting older through the lens of what are these exciting possibilities that I want to create? What do I want to experience? And yeah, this is the second half of my life, however you describe that, right? So I think that's the stage of life and the language we're using is creating a second half of life you're really, really excited about.
Yes, the energizing, the joy. And so many women I talk about, they're like, I don't want to hear people complaining about their lives. And sometimes there's a space and place for that.
Mhm.
But I even had to hold myself accountable that if I'm really upset about something, at what point am I going to stop complaining and take action and accept my part in the place where I'm at and move forward?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Dana, we could just keep on talking. And I'm so grateful we had the chance to chat today about positive aging, about supporting other women, about reinventing yourself when you're at that crossroads.
Well, let's be
And
proud of the age that we are, right? Like
right,
I'm 58. I'm really happy about that. I'm really proud about that. We're the lucky ones, right?
I'm 53 and
Yeah.
there's no shame in it. And the generation that were like, oh, we can't say our age. I'm like,
Yeah.
what are we hiding from or running from? And it's when you embrace it and release that shame, and then you can be free to be yourself. I love
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And I think honestly, it's when we can kind of age out loud, so to speak, that not only are we embracing our age, which means that we're fully living into the stage of life we're in versus, looking to the past. I think we're also shining a light for other people around us on the fact that getting older is not necessarily a scary thing or certainly not a bad thing. It's something that it's a privilege. Like we get to live more years, we get to do more things, we get to experience more life. And I think the more we're all embracing that, right, that's where we can make a difference, not only in our own lives, but, I think in the lives of everybody around us.
Oh, 100,000%. If there was more than 100, I always kind of laugh when people say 1,000% because it's like, well, 100's pretty full, pretty
Yeah.
full.
Yeah.
Well, what would you love to close with today? Kind of a last thought for our listeners.
Hmm. I think that kind of the three core beliefs that we have at Camp Reinvention. One
Mm.
is creating change intentionally. Whatever change you want to create in your life is possible. It is never, ever, ever too late for you to pursue a dream. In fact, that's what's going to keep you most fully alive. And that the life that you've lived so far really does not dictate the life that you live in the future. You get to decide that, right? You get to
Abs-
decide that.
Hmm. Dana, thanks so much for joining me today. And a shout out to Wendy. We'll get her on the
I know she'd love
podcast.
it.
And that sounds great. So I wish you all the best in Camp Reinvention. And I'll have details in the show notes. Thanks so
Awesome.
much.
Thank you. This has been so much fun. Thanks for having me on today.
All right, y'all. I just got off of an amazing call with Dana Hilmer, and she's the co founder of Camp Reinvention. And we almost couldn't stop talking. We felt so connected and in sync with our experiences in life and our career and our incredible passion for supporting other women. And my takeaways, just to review from today, were creating new possibilities for ourselves. Start where you're at. Take one step of action today, right now. You can age out loud and not be ashamed of your age and just be proud of who you are. And if you can, be consistent in your life. Small steps of action. Is it reaching out to one person today? Is it sending one email today? Is it writing one blog post or essay or social media post? What is one step you can take if you're at a crossroads to move yourself towards that step to reinvent yourself today? All right, here's where I need your help. I want you to help me let women entrepreneurs and business owners who are over 50 know that there is a place where they can come to connect, learn, and get inspired at the Women's Midlife Network. You can share this episode with them today. Whether you're clicking those three dots to share the episode or following that little box with the arrow up. Thanks so much. Thanks so much for listening. If you've made it this far, I appreciate you being an essential part of the Women's Midlife Network. We're connecting women, we're sharing stories and inspiring change. and not just for now, but for decades to come. I am so thankful for you, and I always hope you feel the love. Until next time, this is Hillary Baggett with Hill Talks Podcast. Let's move forward in midlife.